Officer Dana Reyes had built her life around service. 14 years with the city police department had shaped her identity, dedicated, fearless, and respected by her colleagues and community alike. From the moment she put on the uniform as a young recruit, Dana was determined to make a difference. She believed in justice, in protecting the innocent, and in the law as a shield for the vulnerable. Her partner through much of her career was Max, a Belgian Malinois with sharp instincts and unwavering loyalty. Together, they were a team that saved lives, faced danger, and brought criminals to justice. Their bond was more than work. It was trust, friendship, and mutual protection. Max had been with Dana through countless late-night patrols, tense raids, and moments when split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. But everything changed on one chilly autumn evening, during what was supposed to be a routine operation. Dana and her unit had received a tip about a suspect, Allegedly carrying illegal weapons in a residential neighborhood. The intel was urgent but sketchy, and tensions were high. As the team moved in, Dana took the lead, with Max by her side. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. Shadows stretched long under streetlights as they approached the house. The operation was meant to be quick, precise. Dana's heart raced, but her training kicked in. As she gave the signal, officers surrounded the building. Max was on alert, growling softly, sensing danger. Suddenly, movement inside a door slammed open. A figure rushed out. Dana's instincts screamed. In the chaos, a shot was fired. It was supposed to be a warning, but a stray bullet struck someone, a bystander, caught in the crossfire. The room froze. Dana's world shattered. The man was rushed to the hospital, but the injuries were fatal. The community was stunned. A civilian had died, and a police officer was responsible. What followed was a nightmare that no one saw coming. An internal investigation turned into a criminal inquiry. The state charged Dana with negligence and reckless conduct. Her name, once spoken with respect, was now whispered with anger and sorrow. Dana was suspended from duty, but the damage was deeper than that. She lost friends, felt the cold shoulder of the city she had sworn to protect. Her family faced threats and judgment. The headlines screamed betrayal. Yet through it all, Dana remained silent, holding onto the hope that the truth would come to light. She knew she had made mistakes, but she also knew the chaotic nature of that night. It was not a story of malice or disregard, but a tragic accident born from split-second decisions. She spent long nights alone, wrestling with guilt and regret. The memories of the man's last moments haunted her. She questioned everything: her training, her choices, her future. The uniform that had been her armor now felt like a burden. The legal battle was just beginning. Court dates were set, and the media circled like vultures. Every hearing was a spectacle. Dana's defense painted a picture of a dedicated officer, caught in an impossible situation, while the prosecution pushed for the harshest penalties. As the trial unfolded, the city became divided. Supporters of Dana held vigils, sharing stories of her bravery and kindness. Opponents demanded justice for the victim and accountability for the officer who had taken a life. Through it all, one thing remained constant: Max, even though retired from active duty, the dog stayed close. When Dana was allowed visits from her loyal partner, their connection never wavered. Max seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, offering silent comfort during the darkest hours. Dana's fall from grace was complete. From hero to defendant, she faced what no cop ever wants to face: the weight of a life lost and the prospect of losing her own freedom. But in the quiet moments, when the courtroom emptied and the city slept, Dana clung to one truth: she was not alone. And Max, her faithful companion, was ready to stand by her side no matter what came next. The news of Officer Dana Reyes' tragic mistake spread like wildfire, igniting a fierce debate that split the city into opposing camps. From the moment the story hit the headlines, it became impossible to ignore the growing tension pulsing through the streets, social media, and even dinner tables. People who once trusted their police force now questioned everything. Was Dana a victim of circumstance, or a careless officer who had crossed an unforgivable line? The city's heartbeat quickened as protests took shape. Crowds gathered in front of the courthouse, waving signs and chanting slogans. Some demanded justice for the man who had lost his life, calling for the strongest punishment available. Others stood with Dana, holding photos of her smiling beside Max, recalling the years she had spent protecting the community. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anger, grief, and confusion. The local news stations ran continuous coverage, showing footage of protests, interviews with grieving family members, and heated debates between citizens and police representatives. Social media was a battlefield. Hashtags supporting Dana trended alongside calls for accountability. Opinions flew fast and furious. Friends argued, families fractured. The city was restless, divided, and aching for resolution. In the midst of this turmoil, Dana remained largely isolated. Her once bustling social life evaporated, replaced by a constant stream of legal appointments and news reports. Her phone rang less and less, and the messages she received were a mix of sympathy and anger. People she had worked alongside for years avoided her gaze or whispered behind her back. The camaraderie that had once been her anchor slipped away, replaced by an overwhelming loneliness. Despite everything, Dana refused to break. She stayed grounded in the memory of her mission, the reason she had joined the force in the first place. The belief that police officers are supposed to protect and serve, even when the world seems to turn against them. She held tightly to the hope that truth would shine through the shadows, that her years of dedication wouldn't be erased by one tragic night. Max, too, was a quiet presence amid the chaos. Though retired, he still came to the courthouse every day when Dana had hearings or meetings. He sat patiently outside the building, eyes alert, seemingly sensing the weight of the moment. To many observers, Max became a symbol of loyalty and steadiness in a time of uncertainty. News crews captured images of the dog sitting quietly beneath the courthouse steps, and those images quickly spread across the city, inspiring many who longed for a reminder of hope and faith. But not everyone was swayed by Max's silent vigil. Some protesters shouted accusations at Dana's defense team, demanding they focus less on the dog's presence and more on the human cost of the tragedy. Inside the courthouse, emotions often ran high. The prosecution painted a harsh picture, arguing that Dana's negligence couldn't be excused by years of good service. The defense fought to show that the incident was an accident, a heartbreaking consequence of high-pressure decisions in a dangerous line of work. As the trial moved forward, Dana faced the hardest days of her life. She was grilled under cross-examination, forced to relive every second of that night in agonizing detail. The courtroom was filled with people eager to judge, some with tears in their eyes, others with cold, hard stares. Every witness, every piece of evidence seemed to add layers to a story that was far more complicated than anyone wanted to admit. Outside, the city grappled with its own conflicts. Community leaders called for peace and understanding, urging citizens not to let anger divide them. Religious groups organized interfaith vigils, and local schools held discussions on justice, forgiveness, and accountability. Still, tensions simmered beneath the surface, ready to boil over at the slightest provocation. Amid the unrest, Dana's family struggled too. Her parents, once proud and supportive, now faced backlash from neighbors and friends. Dana's younger sister became the target of bullying at school. The ripple effects of the tragedy spread far beyond the courtroom walls, affecting innocent lives and relationships. Despite everything, Dana never lost sight of Max. Their bond was a steady force in an otherwise unpredictable world. In quiet moments, she would look at him and remember the good she had done, the lives she had touched, and the years she had poured into a career meant to serve justice, not take it away. The city remained divided, restless and unsure. But for Dana, the fight was far from over. The courtroom loomed ahead, the trial winding toward its climax. And through it all, Max's silent companionship was a reminder that even in the darkest times, loyalty and hope can still find a way to shine. Max was more than just a dog to Officer Dana Reyes. He was her partner, her protector, and her closest friend. For over 8 years, the Belgian Malinois had worked alongside her, sharing the danger, the victories, and the quiet moments in between. In the world of law enforcement, a K9 is more than a tool. He's a teammate with instincts sharper than any humans, and a heart that beats in rhythm with his handlers. Though Max had been officially retired from active duty, months before the trial began, his presence never faded. Every day that Dana had a court appearance, Max was there, waiting patiently just outside the courthouse, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd and his powerful body relaxed but alert. It was a small gesture, but to those who knew their story, it spoke volumes. In a courtroom filled with tension, arguments, and heavy emotions, Max's silent vigil was a grounding force. Witnesses testified, lawyers argued, and the judge listened carefully. But Max remained calm and composed, almost as if he understood the gravity of the situation better than anyone else in the room. Officers and court staff often whispered about Max's unwavering loyalty. "He's got her back," they would say quietly, watching as Max sat quietly during long hearings, never barking, never fidgeting. For many, Max became a symbol, a living reminder of the bond between cop and canine, of the trust built through years of facing danger together. Dana herself drew strength from Max's presence. In the long, lonely nights before each hearing, when doubt and fear crept in, she would think about the dog waiting for her, ready to stand by her side no matter what. The thought gave her a quiet courage, a reminder that she was not truly alone. History with Dana was filled with moments that could fill a book. There was the time he helped track down a missing child in a dense forest, refusing to give up even when others had lost hope. Or the time he instinctively shielded Dana from a sudden attack, placing himself between her and a dangerous suspect. Without hesitation, Max had saved her life more than once, and she owed him everything. As the trial progressed, Max's role shifted from partner in the field to silent witness of the legal battle. He had seen Dana at her best and her worst, through triumphs and now through her darkest hour. While the courtroom was focused on facts, evidence, and testimonies, Max seemed to carry the unspoken truth of their years together. The media noticed him too. Photos of Max sitting patiently at the courthouse steps, eyes steady and soulful, began to circulate. Social media users shared stories of the dog's loyalty, and many found hope in his quiet strength amid a story so heavy with grief and conflict. Yet Max's presence wasn't just a public symbol, it was deeply personal. On days when Dana felt the weight of the accusations crushing her spirit, Max's warm presence reminded her of who she was beyond the headlines and the trial. She was a protector, a partner, and someone who had fought every day for justice. During court recesses, when Dana was allowed brief moments outside the courtroom, Max would come to her side. Without any commands, he would lean into her, offering comfort without words. A bond between them was unbreakable, a connection forged through years of trust and shared experience. Even the prosecution seemed to recognize the power of Max's silent testimony. In one rare moment, a prosecutor admitted to a journalist that there's something about that dog that reminds everyone in the courtroom that this isn't just a case. It's about people, loyalty, and consequences that go beyond legal arguments. As the trial moved forward, Max remained steady, a calm presence in a storm of chaos. His eyes told a story no words could capture, one of loyalty, love, and unwavering support. For Dana, Max was a reminder of what she was fighting for. Not just her freedom, but the bond that had carried her through the darkest moments. The dog had been by her side on the front lines, and now, in a different kind of battle, he stood with her again, in a world full of noise. Max's silent watch was a powerful reminder that sometimes the deepest truths are spoken without a single word. The day of the final hearing arrived, with a heavy silence that settled over the city like a storm about to break. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, onlookers, and protesters from both sides of the divide. Cameras flashed, and microphones were thrust toward the few who dared speak. Every eye seemed fixed on the looming doors that would soon open to reveal the final chapter of Officer Dana Reyes's trial. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense, thick with anticipation and the weight of what was at stake. This was more than a legal proceeding. It was the moment when the community's anger, grief, and hopes would all come crashing down into a single decision. The judge's face was solemn as he prepared to deliver his sentence, the echoes of the trial still fresh in the minds of everyone present. Dana walked into the room with a steady, measured step, though her heart pounded beneath the heavy cloak of uncertainty. She wore a calm expression that masked the storm within. Her eyes briefly met those of her defense attorney before settling on the judge. She was prepared to accept whatever came next, knowing she had done everything she could to tell her truth. Max, her loyal canine partner, sat quietly near the back of the courtroom, his ears pricked forward and his eyes focused. Though retired from active duty, Max's presence had been permitted by the judge, a small concession recognizing the bond between handler and dog and the calming effect he had on Dana. For Max, this day felt different. There was a charged energy in the room, and he seemed to sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. The judge cleared his throat and began to speak. His words echoed in the hushed chamber, recounting the facts of the case, the evidence presented, and the profound loss suffered by the victim's family. He spoke of Dana's years of service and the complexity of the situation that led to the tragic accident. His voice was steady, but heavy with the burden of responsibility. As the judge moved toward the sentencing, a sudden movement caught the attention of everyone in the courtroom. Max, usually calm and composed, rose from his seat and walked steadily toward the front. Without barking or causing a scene, he pushed open the side door of the courtroom and approached Dana's side. The room fell silent, breaths held collectively as Max sat obediently beside her. His calm demeanor and quiet presence were impossible to ignore. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. All eyes were on the dog who had refused to leave his partner's side in the face of the city's judgment. Dana reached down and gently placed her hand on Max's back. The simple touch spoke volumes, a wordless message of gratitude, comfort, and an unbreakable bond forged through years of shared struggles. The judge paused, looking at Max, then at Dana, as if weighing the significance of this unexpected moment. The courtroom was filled with a profound stillness. The presence of Max seemed to soften the atmosphere, reminding everyone of the humanity behind the case. No longer was this just a legal battle. It was a story about loyalty, sacrifice, and the complicated nature of justice. After what felt like an eternity, the judge cleared his throat again. He acknowledged Max's silent testimony, noting that sometimes the deepest truths are conveyed without words. The judge's voice carried a hint of compassion as he explained that while the consequences of Dana's actions could not be ignored, the years of service and the tragic circumstances warranted mercy. Instead of delivering the harshest sentence, the judge announced that Dana would receive a life sentence with the possibility of review after a set period. It was a decision that stunned many in the courtroom. Some nodded with relief, others held back tears, and a few sat in stunned silence as the gavel struck. Max remained seated beside Dana, calm and steady. The dog's presence had shifted. The mood in the room, offering a symbol of hope and compassion amid the weight of loss and judgment. Outside the courthouse, reactions were mixed but respectful. Protesters from both sides acknowledged the gravity of the moment. Supporters of Dana celebrated quietly, understanding that the fight was not over, but that this was a step toward healing. For Dana, the moment was bittersweet. She had faced her darkest fears and come through with a chance to rebuild, to prove that one tragic night did not define her entire life. With Max at her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. In the days that followed, the image of Max quietly sitting beside Dana during the sentencing became a powerful symbol across the city, a reminder that even in moments of judgment and pain, loyalty and compassion can light the way. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity that day, every chair filled, every standing spot taken by people desperate to witness the conclusion of Officer Dana Reyes's fate. Reporters jostled to capture every expression, every word, every heartbeat of what was about to unfold. The air was thick with anticipation and unspoken tension. Families of both the victim and the accused sat on opposite sides, their eyes locked in a silent battle of grief and hope. Dana entered the courtroom quietly, her footsteps steady, despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Her face was calm, though her hands trembled slightly when she clasped them in front of her. She was prepared for whatever verdict the judge would deliver, having spent months grappling with the consequences of that tragic night. Max, Dana's loyal canine partner, was allowed inside by special permission, a rare exception for an animal in such a formal setting. The Belgian Malinois sat attentively in a designated spot near Dana, his eyes bright and watchful. His presence was a reminder of the years of trust and teamwork between handler and dog, partnership forged in the fire of danger and devotion. As the judge rose to announce the sentence, the room fell into a heavy silence. Every eye was fixed on him, every ear strained to catch his words. The gravity of the moment pressed down on the room like a weight. Then, just as the judge began to speak, something unexpected happened. Max, calm until that moment, rose slowly and walked toward Dana. The crowd gasped softly, some in surprise, others in quiet disbelief. Without barking or causing disruption, Max moved steadily and with purpose to Dana's side. He nudged her gently with his nose, as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." The courtroom was stunned into silence. Cameras captured every second as Max sat beside Dana, his gaze steady and reassuring. No one had anticipated this moment, this simple but profound act of loyalty that spoke louder than any words in the room. Dana reached down and wrapped her hand around Max's collar. Her eyes met his, and for a brief second, the entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath, witnessing an unspoken bond between the two that transcended the chaos of the trial. The judge paused, a soft sigh escaping his lips. The presence of Max softened the atmosphere, reminding everyone that behind the legal arguments and the headlines, there was a story of devotion and sacrifice. For a moment, the courtroom wasn't just a place of judgment, it was a place of humanity. The dog's silent testimony echoed louder than any defense attorney's plea or prosecutor's accusation. Max's calm and steady presence reminded everyone that Dana was more than the tragic mistake she had been accused of. She was a protector, a partner, a person who had given her life to serve. The victim's family sat motionless, some with tears streaming down their faces. The weight of loss was still palpable, but Max's unexpected gesture invited a moment of empathy, a shared understanding that tragedy often defies simple answers. When the judge finally resumed speaking, his tone had softened. He acknowledged the complexity of the case, the years of service Dana had given, and the loyalty represented by Max's quiet support. He spoke of justice tempered by mercy, of consequences balanced with compassion. The sentence was pronounced. Dana would serve a life sentence with the possibility of review after a designated period. It was a decision that surprised many, neither the harshest penalty nor an acquittal, but a middle ground that reflected the difficult truths of the case. As the gavel came down, Dana leaned toward Max, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, old friend." Max responded with a soft nuzzle, his tail wagging gently. Outside the courtroom, the reaction was immediate and electric. News outlets broadcast the moment of Max's silent support across the city, sparking conversations about loyalty, justice, and humanity. Social media exploded with messages praising the dog's quiet courage and the judge's balanced decision. For many, Max's act was a symbol of hope, proof that even in the darkest moments, faith and loyalty could shine through. It reminded the city that justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about understanding, healing, and second chances. For Dana, the moment was a turning point. Though the road ahead would be long and difficult, she knew she wasn't walking it alone. Max was there, steadfast, loyal, and unwavering as he had been every step of the way. And in that courtroom, on that unforgettable day, a dog's quiet act of devotion changed everything. The months that followed the sentencing were unlike anything Dana Reyes had ever experienced. Life behind bars was a harsh reality, a world of cold walls, strict routines, and endless hours of silence. Yet even in this confined existence, something had shifted. The verdict, tempered with mercy, offered Dana a fragile hope, a chance to rebuild and find meaning beyond the tragedy that had upended her life. But the most surprising part of this new chapter wasn't the trial's outcome, or the time ahead. It was Max. Though retired from active duty, Max remained an essential part of Dana's life. The police department had arranged for visits, recognizing the critical bond between handler and canine. These meetings became Dana's lifeline. Each time Max padded into the visitation room, tail wagging, eyes bright, the heavy weight of confinement seemed to lift, if only for a moment. Max's loyalty went beyond duty. It was a healing presence. He sensed Dana's pain, her regrets, and the flicker of hope still burning inside her. During their visits, Dana would speak softly to him, recounting memories of happier days, sharing her fears, and sometimes simply sitting in silence, drawing strength from the dog's steady companionship. Outside the prison walls, the city's divided feelings slowly began to soften. The image of Max standing by Dana's side during the trial had left a deep impression. Community leaders started organizing events that focused on healing and reconciliation, emphasizing that justice and compassion could coexist. Programs for supporting families affected by tragedy were launched, and dialogues between law enforcement and citizens aimed to rebuild trust. Dana's family, too, began to find ways to heal. Visits became less fraught, conversations more hopeful. Her younger sister, once bullied and isolated, found strength in speaking openly about the ordeal. The shared pain had forged new bonds, and while the wounds remained, there was a tentative path forward. Within the prison, Dana sought purpose. She enrolled in education programs and joined support groups for those facing loss and redemption. Her determination to make amends fueled her every step. She knew she couldn't erase the past, but she could shape the future one day at a time. Max's visits were often the highlight of these efforts. During one such visit, Dana noticed something remarkable. As Max approached, he seemed more attentive, almost as if sensing the importance of the moment. He allowed her to hold a small training tool, a reminder of their work together. In that gesture, Dana saw the possibility of new beginnings. Inspired, She reached out to prison officials with a proposal, a program involving therapy dogs to help inmates cope with trauma and stress. The idea was met with cautious interest, but Donna's passion and experience eventually won support. Max became a model for what such programs could achieve, proof that animals could bring comfort, healing, and even hope to the most unlikely places. The project's early days were challenging. Not all inmates responded immediately, and some staff were skeptical, but Max's gentle presence bridged gaps. Slowly, walls of mistrust began to crumble. Stories of small breakthroughs, an inmate calming under Max's gaze, a troubled soul finding peace in the dog's company, began to emerge. For Dana, this was more than a project, it was redemption in action. Through Max, she could continue to serve and protect, not with a badge or weapon, but with compassion and care. It was a reminder that even after a fall, purpose could be reclaimed. Outside, the city watched cautiously. The memory of the trial lingered, but so did the hope sparked by Max's quiet courage. People spoke of second chances and the power of loyalty. The story of Dana and Max became a symbol not just of tragedy, but of resilience and the possibility of healing. Dana's journey was far from over. The road ahead would still be difficult, filled with challenges and hard truths. But with Max by her side and a new mission to guide her, she faced the future with renewed strength. This new chapter was not just about survival, it was about transformation. A chance to rewrite the story, to find light in the darkest places, and to prove that loyalty, love, and hope could endure even the most impossible odds. As the months passed, Max's quiet influence reached far beyond the prison walls. What began as simple visits soon blossomed into a movement that transformed how many people viewed the role of therapy animals, and more importantly, the power of loyalty and healing in the face of tragedy. Inside the prison, Max became more than just a visiting canine. He was a beacon of calm for the inmates, a bridge between despair and hope. His presence seemed to ease tensions, soften hardened hearts, and offer a rare kind of comfort that no human words could provide. Prison guards who once doubted the value of therapy animals soon found themselves watching in awe as Max worked his silent magic. Dana, still incarcerated but deeply involved in the therapy program, witnessed remarkable changes. She saw inmates who had long struggled with anger and grief begin to open up when Max was near. She listened to stories of despair, turning into quiet moments of peace, of lives touched by the simple act of a dog's companionship. It wasn't just about comfort, it was about transformation. Outside the prison, Dana's story and Max's captured the attention of a wider audience. Local news outlets featured the innovative therapy program, praising the unexpected hero who had helped bridge divides and bring healing to broken lives. Max's loyalty and gentle nature reminded the city that even amidst pain and punishment, kindness and connection still mattered. But Max's impact wasn't limited to the prison. Dana's defense team began sharing updates about the therapy program in hopes of influencing the ongoing review of her sentence. The idea was simple yet powerful. A woman who had once made a tragic mistake was now dedicating herself to healing others, guided by the unwavering loyalty of her canine partner. This new chapter in Dana's life shifted public opinion. While many still mourned the loss and pain caused by the incident, there was growing recognition of the complexity of justice and the potential for redemption. Max's role in that journey was impossible to overlook. Meanwhile, Max himself continued to inspire those closest to Dana. Her family, once fractured by fear and uncertainty, found renewed hope in the dog's steady presence. Dana's younger sister spoke openly about how Max's visits brought light to their darkest days, helping them heal and move forward. Within the prison, the therapy program expanded, incorporating more trained dogs and increasing participation. Dana became a mentor to other inmates, teaching them about canine care and training, and sharing lessons on responsibility and trust. The transformation in her attitude and purpose was clear. A woman, once defined by tragedy, was now a catalyst for change. Despite the progress, Dana never forgot the weight of the past. Each day was a reminder of the lives affected, of the trust broken, and the road yet to be traveled. But Max's loyalty reminded her that the journey toward redemption was ongoing, and that love and faith could endure even the darkest nights. The city outside still grappled with the legacy of that fateful night. But Max's story offered a different perspective, one of hope, forgiveness, and the power of unseen heroes. It wasn't just about punishment or blame. It was about healing, rebuilding, and finding light in unexpected places. As the review of Dana's sentence approached, there was an undeniable sense of anticipation. The courtroom that once witnessed grief and anger now awaited a decision shaped by compassion and understanding. Max, as always, was ready, calm, steady, and unwavering by Dana's side. In that moment, Max was more than a dog. He was a symbol of loyalty that refused to waver, a silent hero whose actions spoke louder than words. His quiet presence had changed lives, shifted perspectives, and reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest strength lies in steadfast companionship. And for Dana, Max was the reason she could face the future, not as a broken woman, but as someone ready to make amends, heal wounds, and embrace the hope of a second chance. The day of the sentence review hearing finally arrived. The courtroom was quieter than before, filled with a different kind of anticipation, not the fiery anger or intense grief of the past, but a cautious hope. The community, the victim's family, the police force, and Dana herself had all undergone transformations since that fateful night. The story was no longer just about punishment. It had become about redemption and the power of change. Dana entered the courtroom with Max by her side, the faithful dog who had been her anchor through every trial, every sleepless night, and every moment of doubt. The once retired canine still wore his calm, watchful expression, his eyes reflecting the unspoken bond with his handler. To many in the room, Max was more than a dog. He was a living testament to loyalty, compassion, and resilience. The judge reviewed the extensive reports on Dana's conduct since her sentencing, the rehabilitation efforts, her role in the therapy dog program, and the profound impact she had made on the lives of fellow inmates. Testimonies from prison staff, inmates, and community leaders spoke of a woman who had grown into a symbol of hope, someone who had taken responsibility for her actions and dedicated herself to making amends. The victim's family, who had suffered immeasurable loss, offered statements acknowledging the difficult journey Dana had undertaken. Their words were measured but heartfelt, expressing both the pain that would never fade and a desire to see healing extended to everyone affected by the tragedy. The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged but respectful, an unspoken acknowledgement that justice was not merely about retribution, it was about restoration. When the judge called for Dana to speak, her voice was steady but filled with emotion. She addressed the courtroom with honesty, humility, and a deep sense of responsibility. She spoke of the night that changed everything, the pain she carried, and the journey she had embarked on to find redemption. "My mistakes have cost a life, and I will carry that weight forever," she said quietly. "But through my time here, and with Max's support, I have found a purpose to help others heal, to honor that life by making sure no one else suffers as I have." Max rested his head gently on Dana's knee as if to offer silent encouragement. A perfect partner, even in this moment of vulnerability. After careful consideration, the judge delivered his decision. Dana's sentence would be modified to include eligibility for parole sooner than initially set, contingent upon continued good behavior and participation in community rehabilitation programs. It was a decision that balanced accountability with compassion, reflecting the remarkable transformation Dana had shown. The courtroom released a collective breath, some eyes welling with tears, others nodding in quiet approval. It was a moment of closure and a beginning a chance to rebuild trust and move forward. Outside, the city responded with a mixture of relief and hope. News of the modified sentence and the story of Max's unwavering loyalty spread quickly. People spoke not only of justice, but of the healing power of compassion and the possibility of second chances. Dana's family embraced the news with cautious optimism. Her sister, once hesitant and fearful, now spoke openly about the strength she found in Dana's journey and Max's constant presence. Together, they looked toward the future with a renewed sense of hope. For Dana, the road ahead was still long and uncertain, but she faced it with the steady determination that had carried her through every challenge. Max remained by her side, a reminder of the bond that had never wavered, a bond that had given her strength when she needed it most. The therapy program she helped build continued to grow, reaching more inmates and bringing light to dark places. Max, though aging, still made visits, embodying the spirit of hope and healing that had become their shared mission. In a world often divided by pain and judgment, Dana and Max's story became a beacon, a testament to the power of loyalty, redemption, and the enduring human-animal connection. It showed that even in the darkest moments, there is a path toward renewal, shaped by courage, compassion, and the belief that everyone deserves a second chance. And so, with Max faithfully at her side, Dana stepped into the future, not as a shadow of her past, but as a living example of transformation, forgiveness, and hope.